I'm Neve, and today I'm going to be talking about trauma and grief anniversaries and how to cope with them, what they feel like, what you should do on them, if anything. And today I'm actually filming this because it's a really important day to me. It's the 22nd of May 2024, which marks 7 years since the Manchester Arena attack at the Ariana Grande concert in 2017. Now, this is a topic that I want to be really careful talking about because it's not like my grief with my mum, because that's personal, whereas this topic is about way more than me and is so much bigger than me and my feelings. So I just want to preface that anything that I do speak about that refers to the Manchester attack and my trauma and PTSD from that is personal to me, and everyone's coping mechanisms, everyone's grief, everyone's trauma is so different and so valid, and yeah, it's not comparable. But if anyone is listening who has experienced that or something similar, I do hope that hearing someone else speak about it is helpful to you. I think one thing that sort of shocked me this year, obviously it's been 7 years, I'd say that the Manchester attack is probably the first big event in my life where I was like, this is going to be a thing that stays with me, and every year this is going to be something that is a challenge. Like, I lost two grandparents when I was younger, and obviously I was devastated, but I was so young at the time. I think I was like 4 and 7 that I didn't really compute as much. I think that those have just affected me deep in my brain, all my mental health issues now, whereas I was 17 at the time of the attack, so I was in my formative years, I think. But yeah, something that surprised me this year is that I try and do something every year for the anniversary, because, like I said, it's something that's not just about me. Um, it's not just about my life. In fact, it's not about my life. It's about the lives of 22 people who were obviously taken. Whereas with like my mum, I feel less guilt for that because that's just my own grief and it's personal to me. Whereas I feel like with the anniversary, I need to do something to remember those people, even though every day it crosses my mind and every day I think about them, and I would not be the person I am today if that hadn't happened to me. But that is not necessarily the right way to feel, because if I was speaking to someone else, like I'm speaking to you right now, you don't owe anyone anything when it comes to how you want to cope on anniversaries. So I always take the day off. So I take the Manchester attack anniversary off. My mum's death day off. My mum's birthday off as well, because I want to give myself the freedom to feel whatever I want to feel and do what I want to do. And I work in a customer facing environment, and I get a bit angry sometimes when I'm traumatized and things, so I would probably not have the patience to deal with someone complaining about their steak being well done on that kind of day. But I do think it is important to give yourself that space to feel, and obviously anniversaries, especially first anniversaries, are scary. I honestly think that the lead up to anniversaries and the days after anniversaries are kind of worse, because I feel like with like with this with my mum, on the actual day of the anniversary it's kind of just like, oh, like what do I do with myself, and then the next day it sort of hits you and it's like, god, it's like a grief or trauma hangover, I suppose. So I've got tomorrow off as well, because I know that that's something that happens to me. That might just be my thing, but I don't know. Maybe that happens to other people. Let me know. But yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, the first one is like, I mean, not necessarily the worst. Like, how do I know? Like, the anniversary next year or whatever could, for some reason, hit me really hard. But the, the sort of terror leading up to that and all the thoughts and everything that you've sort of been scared of, especially with grief and like, well, no, actually with anything, because I think that like when something like that happens or when you lose someone, you can't imagine being there a year later without that person, a year later with that trauma, and it comes around so fast, like because days and life just do. And it's like, oh my god, how have I possibly gone the whole year without that person? And I personally think it comes with a lot of pressure of, oh, are people gonna remember? Are people gonna think that I should be over it by now? The answer is no, and anyone that says you should be over it, fuck them. You never need to be over it. It's not something, grief or trauma is not something that you have to get over or should like get over. It may stay with you forever. As long as that's in a healthy way, that's fine. But yeah, I think it definitely one of the scariest thing about it is that pressure and that heartbreak of, oh my god, they are gone and they've been gone for a whole year. And it's like, what have I done in that year? And whether you have done a lot or not, it's like, oh, that's how much I've done and they weren't there with me and they'll never know. Or it's like, oh, I've not done enough. What have I been doing? I think it kind of feels like saying goodbye to them or to that event or whatever it is all over again, and that's terrifying. The first anniversary of the Manchester attack, and I'm talking about this more than my mum, just because when it comes to my mum's anniversary, I've never done anything for it. I've stayed, and obviously that's because I don't feel any pressure to do anything for anyone else, because I'm quite alone in that grief in a way. And I also think it's probably just subconsciously, it's just too hard for me to, like, I've desensitized myself so much from it that I just prefer to like act like it's not happening in a way. Like I'll like go up and I'll acknowledge it, and I probably will try and feel, because like I said, I take the day off, and if you listen to my previous podcast, you'll know that like I struggle a lot with crying and feeling strong emotions. So I'll probably try and do that because I mean that's the day to do it, and try and find some connection there. But with the trauma of the Manchester attack, it's just something that I just can't brush past. Like this year, so like I said at the start, I try and do something every year. And this year, I was going to go, so basically today I was getting my hair done and I'm going out tonight with friends, and I was gonna, in the morning, go to the Victoria train station, go to the memorial at the Glade of Light, go, and I sort of usually go and retrace my steps and read. Sometimes the families leave things for people to read, and I just really take time to think about every single person who passed away. And I was going to do that this morning, but I decided not to because I thought, let me try and do this differently in my own way. I'm not always gonna be able to go into Manchester. Like during COVID, I remember I couldn't because I don't live here, and I wasn't allowed to go in, and that was really really hard. Because I just felt like no one remembered and things like that, and I felt very alone. Like my family didn't remember, no one really said anything. But usually that's what I like to do. But it's pouring down with rain today, and I didn't get much sleep last night, and I just thought, let me try and take a bit more time to myself. And I thought, like, maybe I'll be able to get through the day and I won't really be that affected by it. But I have been. And I sort of woke up today thinking, I don't know, every single year I'm like, I'm still bothered about it, but I have this worry and this feeling that no one else is going to remember, and they're just going to brush past it, and like I should be over it and I shouldn't be feeling this strongly about it. But that hasn't been the case, which is wonderful to see, because like I said, it's not about remembering for me, it's about remembering for those people who passed away every day, not just today. Yeah, and now I kind of feel, I don't know, a little bit guilty that I haven't been. But I read that there's going to be some sort of memorial thing tonight, so I'm thinking maybe to go to that. But I'm just trying to not put too much pressure on myself. And it's kind of nice to know that I still can feel and I am still so affected by it in a way, like, because it's been a long while now. 7 years is crazy. Like, it's mind blowing. It's just because I feel like that day, half of my life stopped, and obviously the other half kept going. And I think I'll always feel like that because I've felt like that for 7 years. Like I said at the time that it happened, I didn't want to get too much into this, but the part of my brain was 17 and the other part was 80 years old in the moment that it all sort of happened. And I still feel like that way, that part of me is always going to be 17, part of me is always going to be. And like with grief, I'm kind of glad because I never ever want to forget those people and that what happened. I never ever want to forget that and the significance of that and all the love and strength and outpouring of just like generosity and kindness that came from that sort of counterbalanced the evil. I never ever want to forget that, and so I'm glad that even though I feel more healed, like I still get trauma and anxiety and PTSD in crowded situations and things like that. It's never stopped me from going to concerts or anything, but I'd be lying if I said that I didn't still get affected by it. But it gets less and less, and you think about it, like you think about it a bit less and less, and you start to worry that you're moving on too much, which maybe isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I personally do feel like there's a part of me that wants to have a connection to things that have happened and people that I've lost. And I think, yeah, that's what makes anniversary so hard is like the fear of moving on. And especially with grief, the fear that that person's no longer here. Like, I still haven't spread my mum's ashes. And I feel like that's something you do on an anniversary. And every year I'm like, shall we do it in my head? And I just, like, I don't know why we haven't yet. I think it is down to me. And now it just feels like, oh my god, it's been 4 years nearly. Like, first of all, where are they? Someone's got them. My granny had them, and then she passed away, so I don't know. But, like, I just think, yeah, it's the whole, like, not wanting to move on malarkey and things. Yeah, I nearly got into this before, but then I sidetracked as per usual. So the first Manchester attack anniversary was really, really hard, and I didn't live in Manchester back then. I was still in my hometown because I hadn't gone to uni, and I went with some friends into Manchester and we did like a fan meetup, I think. And went with two people that I met at college after we'd all been in the attack. So like we'd been told by mutual friends that we'd all been there, and now we are sort of friends. Well, we are friends, and we were like obviously really close at the time. And we went back, and it was a really, really hard day. I think for some people that I was with, it was the first time going back to Manchester. It was certainly the first time going back to the arena where it happened. I went back a couple months after when we were sort of allowed to do a tour with the police. So that was really, really hard to see people go through that. But there was like a ceremony and a minute's silence at St Anne's Square around the time when it happened, and the bells rang, and in that moment I went back. I heard, and I don't want to, how do I put this without being too triggering? I heard the sounds that I heard at the time. I felt the panic. I felt the rush. It was mad because I was just stood outside in the middle of Manchester, surrounded by people in silence, and yet my head was back there. So yeah, that was really hard. Obviously that won't happen for everyone, and that may be like more personal to the specific like trauma. But yeah, this is kind of just gonna be a short episode. I just thought it was nice. This obviously I said I'm not trying to do too much today, so I thought this would be my way of, sitting and working through that anniversary. And it's been incredible and lovely and really validating to see how many people on social media and like friends still message to me like asking if I was okay and just stuff like that. If you are listening and you are someone who is listening to try and find ways to support a friend or family member, like those little differences, those little actions make such a difference, at least for me, just to know that people are there and people acknowledge the fact that this is a hard day for you. And it doesn't matter whether it's been 1 year or 10 or 15 or 50, it's hard. And that's okay. Max Belegde, just before I started recording this podcast, put something on his Instagram because he was there as well. And I followed him, like I've seen his stuff for a while, but I didn't know until like, I'd say a year or so ago when I think he did a campaign that he was there. But I'm really happy and proud that he has like spoke about on his platform, because it made me feel like there are still people, we are all still struggling and we are all still affected. And to hear him and the things that he was saying really resonated with me. So I'm glad I can come on here and sort of do the same thing and let people know that you can still feel, and anniversaries are scary, and you are so valid whether you want to keep busy or you want to cry all day or you whatever you want to do is so fine, and you're so valid. I want to end this podcast by saying be kind, be silly, be honest, be brave, because today is not just the anniversary of the Manchester attack, it's also the first anniversary of one of my good friend's sister passing away. And it wouldn't feel right to end this podcast with her message of how to live life. And if you're listening to this, whether it's morning, evening, whatever, today, be kind, be silly, be honest, be brave, today and every day. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Watching? Listening. Maybe you are watching. Hello, YouTube. Or, I don't know. Maybe you are. Thank you and good night.